Multiple federal courts have blocked the president from implementing a new order that would deny birthright citizenship to children whose parents are in the United States illegally. And while that issue is at the heart of this case, it wasn't really what the justices were even hearing arguments on today. Instead, that mainly focused on whether or not a judge can single-handedly block the president's executive order with what's known as a nationwide injunction. The conservative justices actually signaled that they were open to limiting that power, but several raised questions about what would happen if the president's order can stand as the courts are working out a case.
This is just a very practical question, how this is going to work. What do hospitals do with a newborn? What do states do with a newborn?
Let's just assume you're dead wrong. How do we get to that result? Does every single person that is affected by this EO have to bring their own suit?
So when a new president orders that because there's so much gun violence going on in the country, and he comes in and he says, I have the right to take away the guns from everyone, then people, and he sends out the military to seize everyone's guns. We and the courts have to sit back and wait until every named plaintiff gets, or every plaintiff whose gun is taken comes into court.
My legal source tonight is CNN's senior legal analyst, Elie Honig. And Elie, I wonder, just given what we heard from the justices and their clear concern about chaos reigning throughout the United States, what were your biggest takeaways from today?
Well, Caitlin, both sides of this argument have a major problem. On the one hand, people who are in favor, the challengers here, the people who are in favor of nationwide injunctions, it's obviously an example of judicial overreach. District court judges, there are 700 of them or so in this country spread across 94 federal districts. They are supposed to decide the case before them as to the parties before them. And it really does offend Title III sensibilities for judges, individual judges, to be making decisions that apply to the entire country. On the other hand, if we got rid of these nationwide injunctions, as you just heard in those snippets you played, chaos would follow. How would we possibly take birthright citizenship? Why should a baby born in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia have one status, but a baby born in New Jersey have another status? Who's going to track it? So both sides have really deeply entrenched problems with their positions here.
Well, and it was interesting to hear from John Sauer, who's arguing on behalf of the government. He's the Solicitor General, basically number 3 at the DOJ. And he said to Justice Brett Kavanaugh that it's not clear how the president would enforce this executive order. I want people to just listen to what the Solicitor General had to say.
The states can continue to, the federal officials will have to figure that out.
How?
So you could imagine a number of ways that the federal officials could.
Such as?
Such as they could require a showing of, documentation showing legal presence in the country for a temporary visitor, for example.
For all the newborns? Is that how that's going to work?
Again, we don't know.
I mean, Kavanaugh sounded pretty skeptical there.
Yeah, that's the sound of a justice unconvinced. That's a bad moment for John Sauer. And let me tell you why that's especially important. If you're trying to sort of game out how might this decision come down. First of all, I think Trump's going to lose ultimately on birthright citizenship. I think his position departs too far from the way we've looked at that for 157 years. Every judge who's considered this lower court judge, regardless of ideology, has rejected that position. But the real ball game here is those nationwide injunctions. It's clear the 3 liberal justices are going to be against Trump on them. It's clear Alito and Thomas are going to be for him. So the ballgame is, can you, if you're on the liberal side, get 2 out of Gorsuch, Roberts, Barrett, and Kavanaugh? And I think Kavanaugh sees a real problem with the practicalities here. And I think Amy Coney Barrett also voiced some real questions that I think would be of concern to the Trump administration.
The court now has 2 questions to weigh if it chooses. Can lower courts impose nationwide injunctions? And fundamentally, does the 14th Amendment mean something other than what it appears to say? With me here to argue the case, best-selling Supreme Court biographer and former federal prosecutor Jeffrey Toobin, also CNN political analyst and New York Times White House correspondent Maggie Haberman. Jeff, just on the legal front, regarding those 2 aspects of how this may be decided, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think ultimately birthright citizenship is going to be upheld. I mean, there doesn't seem to be much sentiment on the court to adopt the Trump position on birthright citizenship. However, the issue of nationwide injunctions, which is a big issue, it was big under President Biden, it's big now. the court seems quite torn on that issue because, and it's a very hard question because it's obviously a problem when liberal lawyers can run to San Francisco and get one nationwide injunction and conservative lawyers can run to Amarillo, Texas and get a different.
And we've seen both that done under different administrations.
And that is not how the legal system is supposed to work. However, when you have something like birthright citizenship, it is a good idea to have a national rule. So a nationwide injunction is a good idea. So how do you differentiate between cases? I mean, you don't want to have a situation where you have birthright citizenship in New York but not in Texas. It should be one rule for the country. And so the issue is, how do you differentiate between issues where it's appropriate to have a nationwide injunction and have it, and some where it's not? And I don't think the court has really sorted that out at all. They seem pretty much at sea on
Maggie, do you have any sense how the administration feels about how things went?
Hey, look, they are happy that this fight is at the Supreme Court. This fight over nationwide injunctions is one they have wanted for some time. Separately, the one over birthright citizenship is one they have wanted for a while. Some folks in the administration believe they will ultimately be successful on a birthright citizenship case, even if it's not this one. On the nationwide injunctions, this relates to a lot of their efforts in this administration going forward. If the court ends up doing something in their favor or takes time making this decision, they believe that all at least adheres to them in some way. This administration has yoked, the public relations component and the press component and what people read with the legal component, and they think that if people are seeing that the justices themselves are grappling with this, it gives more weight to what they're arguing. Even if they don't actually win on the point, there are enough people who will question what they are seeing when judges issue nationwide injunctions if they continue.
And how quickly would a ruling come through, Jeff?
Well, they seem very concerned about acting quickly, more than in the usual case, because they recognize that the uncertainty generated by nationwide injunctions, when nationwide injunctions may be illegal, is something that's a big problem for the legal system. So, we're already late in the term. I mean, the term usually ends beginning of July. Here we are, the middle of May. But I would suspect there's going to be a decision in this case even before the end of the term, because they really want to get some sort of order around this, especially when it's not just birthright citizenship, but a lot of the Trump initiatives are being challenged in court, and there really should be one rule for the whole country.
And is the administration ready to act on this?
Well, if they win in this case, yes, they're going to move forward quite quickly, and you are going to see a rollout of a number of executive actions. Look, they're very proud of how many executive actions they have taken. They are very proud of basically trying to expand and maximize executive power in ways, obviously, that critics say is going beyond the scope of their authority. But they are maneuvering around Congress, and they have been trying to both do two things. One is to try to get things before the Supreme Court so they can then have whatever they are trying to do either signed off of or not signed off of, and then they'll try again in certain cases. But they are also attempting to attack the legitimacy of some of what courts nationwide are doing in general. You are seeing Stephen Miller doing it. You've seen Elon Musk doing it. Trump is doing it, albeit to a slightly lesser degree. If they succeed here, they will move very quickly. But what aspects of their agenda, we'll see.
Well, but if they succeed in any way in limiting nationwide injunctions, that's good for the Trump administration.
Yes,
and that is, I mean, because ultimately,
that is the only thing that is stopping a number of these executive orders.
The main story of the first months of the Trump administration has been this attempt to expand executive authority, and the courts reeling it back in certain circumstances. To the extent you can limit the courts, that helps the Trump administration. So any sort of limitation on that, which seems possible,
how
is likely.
They were pulling every lever in every realm. It's remarkable.
Look, we heard Steve Bannon talk about flooding the zone in 2017 when they first came in. This is an entirely different order of magnitude. They are not just with policy, but basically with every system that they can, trying to either attack it or take ownership of it or neutralize it, and the courts are the last vestige.
Maggie Haberman, Jeff Toobin, thanks very much.